All right, in this video, we're going to be talking about how you can leverage AI to hyper-personalize thousands of cold emails at a time. That way, you can send hyper-relevant messages out to your prospects and not have to manually write each and every one of them. For a little bit of context on who I am and why you can trust me, my name is Matt Lucero. I've sent over 5 million cold emails to date on behalf of our customers to help them book sales meetings. And so in this video, I'm going to share with you the exact framework we use to be able to personalize thousands or tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of emails at a time using AI. That way you can steal it from me, implement it in your business, and hopefully not have to manually write each and every email personalization one at a time. So without further ado, let's dive straight in. So diving straight in, we're going to be talking about how you can personalize your emails at scale. And in this video, I want to use a real world example. I don't want to just give you hypotheticals. I want to show you an actual campaign that I'm going to be running for myself, and we're going to personalize it here together. And you're going to see all the individual micro steps that actually go into this to be able to run a successful hyper-personalized campaign. So in this framework here, first we're going to cover this, and then we're going to actually execute on these steps. So there's 4 main steps that I'm using here to be able to personalize your emails at scale. The first thing you're going to want to do is build the lead list and the campaign strategy for that matter. So we're going to want to figure out who we're targeting, what is the baseline criteria we're going to use, and how we're going to personalize it. Then we're going to determine exactly how we want to personalize the emails, because it's very important to have an idea of what you want to look like before you go into it, instead of just throwing a bunch of stuff at the wall and not really being sure exactly what you want. Then we're going to leverage AI to source or clean up data on our behalf, and then we're going to insert it in our emails. And so again, I'm going to use a real world example here. So we're going to dive in, and we're going to start with step 1, which is building the lead list. So I'm going to use an example, again, real world use case. So in most cases, whenever we send cold emails for our customers, and most of the cold email campaigns we're running are sales led, I want to use a real use case that we're using for ourselves right now, which is a recruiting use case. So my company, Nevo Marketing, we're hiring for a head of go-to-market. And so one of the strategies we're doing is we're going to be sending cold emails out to people to see if they know anyone who could be a good fit for this role. So we're just trying to get in front of a bunch of people who might know someone that could be interested in this role. So how we're going to do this, first, we're going to build the lead list. So in the example case here, the job that we're hiring for is head of go-to-market. And so the types of people that probably know people that are in market for this role are people that have very similar titles or people that are in adjacent titles. So right now, you're going to see here, this is Apollo. Apollo is a lead database. You can use a lot of different lead databases. Apollo is the primary one we use because it has a lot of features that make it easy to use, and the database is already scraped, and so we can just pull stuff in very seamlessly from here. So what I went ahead and did is I already built the list criteria because I didn't want this to be a whole list building video. Essentially, I just scrape people that have titles, again, that are similar to this role, keeping in mind that people who would be a good fit for this role would probably know other people that would also be a good fit for this role, if this makes sense. So we're scraping a bunch of people with similar job titles. We're scraping the US and Canada, and then we're scraping employee headcounts that, again, would be relevant. So we have about 21,000 people here. We have about 15,000 already scraped because we've run campaigns in the past for our customers. And so what I'm going to do here is leverage the data that I've already paid for, and I'm going to go ahead and scrape 5,000 or so of these people. Again, for the sake of this video, I might end up reaching out to a lot more people, but we're just going to scrape this. So I'm going to take these 5,000 people that we have already saved, and I'm going to go ahead and export these people through Apollo. So while this is exporting, we're going to let this load here. Again, just speed running through this. These criteria, I have another video entirely on Apollo and how you can build out job titles, location criteria, employees, all this stuff, and the kind of reasoning going into this. But just zooming all the way out, we're doing a recruiting campaign. We want to reach out to people who might know other potential applicants. And so the first thing we're doing is we're building this lead list. All right, amazing. So it's went ahead and loaded, and we're going to download this lead list. So now we have our lead list downloaded here. Step 1 complete. We have our lead list built that now we can then personalize. The next thing we're going to do here is determine how we want to personalize the emails and ideal output. So again, this goes back to strategy. We want to determine who we're reaching out to. And now we want to determine really what we want the personalized emails to ideally look like. Again, I went ahead and put together a sample script here. In other videos, I've talked about how to put together scripts with cold emails. So if you want to check those out, you can see other videos. But here's just an example script that we have here. Hi, first name, took a look at your profile on LinkedIn, saw your leading job function at Normalized company. Just curious, you know anyone looking looking for a director level go-to-market job. For context, I run a cold email agency. Is there anyone you can introduce? That's really the email at a super high level. Now, I've already determined here how I want to personalize the email. So here's our kind of blank canvas email, and I've determined that things that might be relevant to personalize here is calling out what job function they're currently leading. So for example, if they are a head of business development, I might want to say, hey, I saw you're leading the business development department, or hey, I saw you're leading sales, or hey, I saw you're leading marketing or growth, or whatever it might be. I want to include a little snippet here that calls that out. And then I also want to call out their company name. Again, this is just an example. In a lot of cases, I don't think it's really necessary to call out their company name, but I'm going to show you how you can clean this up with AI and again, personalize this in emails at scale. I already went ahead here, put together this email, and I already determined how we want to personalize the emails because I have the snippets in here already. If you are unsure on how you want to personalize your emails, what I would really sit and think through is if you could manually write an email, what parts would you personalize? Now, we're sitting here and thinking how we can do this at thousands of people at a time, but if I'm sitting here and in the case of, you know, a recruiting style email, I want to personalize each and every email, I'm going to sit and think for a second, what do I want to call out about this person? I probably want to call out what their experience is currently, which is why we're using the job function example here and their company name example. We could go a different direction and say, hey, I took a look at your profile on LinkedIn. I'm really impressed with your experience at XYZ Corp, or hey, I'm really impressed by the LinkedIn posts that you're making. You can kind of take this any direction you want. It really just depends again on the campaign you're running. And in this case, this is a super simple personalization. Now we can also use AI to personalize the entire lines at a time. So if I want to, I could just have this be an entire snippet where it says, hey, saw you're doing whatever, right? You can let AI have kind of like a open playbook to put in whatever it wants or whatever relevant experience it finds. I'm more of a fan of tactically trying to find little snippets that I know what AI should output. That way I have more control over the email, because if you kind of let AI go off the rails, it might write something that you don't want it to say. That way I'm being really tactical with what we're doing here by having these small snippets. Now you see here in the comments section, I already put what I ideally want AI to say. This is going to come in handy later whenever we're going to leverage AI and we're going to prompt it, because if you don't know what you want AI to output, it's not going to do a very good job. And so again, what you're going to do before you leverage AI, determine the script you're going to want to run. If you need help with that, you can check out my other videos, and then also determine what snippets you're going to use and what the ideal outputs are. Again, I'm using myself as an example here. If I want to reach out to myself, my company is called Inivo Marketing. But if you wanted to specify in a cold email, I probably would just say, hey, I saw you're leading business development at Inivo. I probably wouldn't put the marketing. For an example too, let's say we're reaching out to the IRS, which their official company name or the official department name is the Internal Revenue Service. You'd probably want to call them the IRS. So you probably want to have these examples in mind, what the outputs look like, again, before we go to AI and start to actually run these campaigns. And so again, step one, we built the lead list. Step two, I already have an idea of the campaign I want to run, what I want to say in the emails, and what I want AI to personalize. Now we're going to get to the fun part, which is leveraging AI to source the data and clean up the data. So what we're going to do here, we're going to do three things with AI. First, we're going to filter out. In my case, I want to reach out to people that know other people in the B2B space. So I'm going to filter out people that work at companies that are in B2B. We want to filter out people that work at B2C companies. So we're going to start there. Then we're going to clean their job function. So we're going to look at their job title, use AI to clean up and make this snippet. And then we're also going to normalize the company name. So we're going to take the company name, we're going to clean it up with AI. So then we can get this nice clean output like I'm showing you here. So how are we going to do this? We're going to use Clay. If you want to check it out, there's an affiliate link in the description below. If you sign up with it, you get a bunch of free credits. It's basically a AI canvas you can use to personalize a bunch of data at scale and do a bunch of go-to-market workflows. So we're going to jump into Clay here. I went to Apollo. I already scraped all the people that I want to use here. And so I'm just going to import this directly into Clay. If you've used Clay before and you want to find people directly in here, you can do that as well. There's a bunch of ways you can source data natively through Clay, but I'm just going to use Apollo and source it from here. So I'm going to go ahead and grab the lead list that I want to use that we just scraped from Apollo, and we're going to let that load here. And then we're going to complete the import, and you're going to see all this data that we just scraped from Apollo, which is about 5,000 people. We just dumped into Clay really quick here. And so while this is loading in, you can see these are all the people we scraped. And so looking back at our filters, you can see we scraped head of go-to-market lead, director of go-to-market, head of business development, director of business development. Again, I kept this kind of light because there's a zillion titles we could reach out to, but I might also reach out to growth titles and sales titles and all kinds of other stuff. And so really all I want here is in this snippet to filter out for the go-to-market titles, put GTM, and for the business development titles to put business development. So this is pretty straightforward here. We have our list that we just pulled from Apollo, and now we're going to want to use AI to personalize this. So real quick, if you're watching this video and you want someone to come in and actually build out a system and manage it like I'm showing you in this video here, feel free to check the first link in the description below. We can either help you build out a cold email system and manage it and book calls on your behalf, or help answer any questions you have when trying to navigate sending cold emails at scale. So if you want to check that out, check the first link in the description below. Appreciate you a ton and hope you enjoy the rest of the video. Going back here to our sheet, we've determined how we want to leverage AI. And so actually I'm going to start with this. We're going to filter out all the people that work at B2C companies because their experience and their network probably isn't going to be as relevant as the people who work at B2B companies. So we're going to go over here inside Clay, and then we're going to press add column, and we're going to use AI here. Now I'm going to move my beautiful face out of the way. That way you can see the prompting stuff we're going to do here. And first, we're going to start off by filtering out all the people that work at B2B companies. And so how are we going to do this? We're going to ask AI to check the websites that these people work at. And we're going to have it categorize whether the company they work at is a B2B or B2C company. The way that you prompt Clay is very similar to how you'd give a normal human instructions. And so what we're going to do here is we're going to go into this use AI tab, and we're going to go to the prompt, and we're going to ask it to, number one, visit the website, and then number two, return if it's a B2B or B2C company. It's funny, Clay's actually default prompt here is exactly this. So the prompt is actually sitting right in front of us. I'm going to tweak this slightly more so we can be a little bit more defined with this, but I'm going to feed you a company website, and I want you to scour the website and determine if it's a B2B company or a B2C company. If it's a B2B company, output B2B. If it's a B2C company, output B2C. So again, I'm trying to be as crystal clear as I can with AI. We don't want there to be any confusion here. If you're not sure, output B2B. So I'm giving it kind of like an edge case here because some cases AI might not be able to come up with a clear answer. I'm going to only reach out to the people that work at B2B companies. And so I'd rather include like a small segment of the market that might not be relevant than exclude them out. So I'm just saying, hey, if you're really not sure, just categorize as B2B, might as well reach out to them. And now I'm going to feed it the website. Here is the company's website. So again, the way that we're prompting this is very similar to how you would talk to a human. You just want to have clear instructions, clear bounds, and make sure you feed it the data that is relevant. So we're going to feed it the company's website. And so I'm going to go over here to the website column and feed it the website. One last thing I'm going to do before I run this is I'm going to switch the model. So Clay, this is a tool you can use all kinds of different AI models. There's plenty of AI models, and the one I'm going to use actually is not the best AI model, but it is the best value AI model. So you can see Anthropic has all their stuff here. Gemini, OpenAI, and Clayagent has their own stuff that they've kind of put together. I'm going to use GPT-4o Mini. The reason why is because it is the best value model. If I end up using my own API key by going over to OpenAI's website and grabbing it myself, I'm able to do this for significantly cheaper than what Clay is charging and be able to do this cost effectively at scale. If this ends up costing me $1 per row that I run, this is going to cost me $5,000 because we have 5,000 rows. A Clay credit is like 3 cents. So again, I'm kind of exaggerating here, but if it costs 3 cents per 5,000 rows, I can still add up pretty quickly. If I use my own API key, it's a lot cheaper. And if we use cheaper models, again, it's going to be a lot cheaper. So I'm just going to save. I'm going to run 10 to start. That way I can see if the outputs look good. I'm not going to guess and check and do all of the stuff I would normally do if we were to run a campaign. In most cases, I want to go and actually verify if the outputs are exactly how I want them to be myself. In this case, I just want to see that it's outputting the right thing, which is B2B or B2C. Now, I'd expect most of these people are going to be in the B2B space because usually if you have like a business development title or a go-to-market title, these are titles are heavily skewed to B2B companies. But in the case that we're reaching out to like a director of marketing or a director of sales or even like a director of growth, those are titles are more common at B2C companies. And so again, this workflow might be more relevant, but again, I'm just doing this for the sake of this video. The outputs in this case look fine. And so I'm just going to have this run entirely at scale. So you can see just how simple that was with just a couple minutes of prompting, couple minutes of throwing some leads together here. We can have AI do all the filtering work that normally someone would manually have to go line by line and have this done, or you wouldn't be able to do this filtering at all. And then you'd just be reaching out to a bunch of people and not sure that they're accurate. So this is the first step in our workflow. And so this is complete. So first of all, we used AI to filter out the people that are B2C. I'll show you real quick how you can filter this out inside Clay. We can add a filter where business model type, which is what Clay categorizes as. Let me actually make this a separate column here. The way that you do this is by clicking into the cell and then hovering over the response and press adding column. I can go ahead here and just filter out anyone who has the response here B2C. So you can see this one does. I can go into the filters tab here and then filter out people that have this response. I'm also going to show you how you can run a conditional formula to do this as well. But while this is running, we're going to move on to the next step here. So first we filtered out B2B. I'm going to highlight this green since we're done. Now we're going to want to clean the job function. So again, going back to our use case here, we're going to want to say, hey, I saw your leading job function. So the output here, assuming they're a head of business development or VP of business development, I want it to just say business development. I actually want it to say it in lowercase. So let me revise this and just say business development. So that's the ideal output we want here. And if they're in the go-to-market type role, I want it to say GTM, or I could even have it spell out go-to-market entirely. So we're going to actually do this here. And then also we can, in the case that I'd actually want to run this at scale, I'd also have other titles like sales, growth, and a million other type of things here. But again, this is going to be a pretty simple use case. So we had AI scrape the web and return this in this case here. Now we're going to use AI yet again. And instead of having it research the web like we had at default, we're just going to have it clean up the data that we've already provided, because we can figure out or clean up the job function variable here simply by looking at their job title and just telling it to clean it up. So what we're going to do, we're going to prompt it here again. I am going to feed you a person's job title, and I want you to output their job function. And so that's kind of like a vague sounding prompt. And so I'm going to want to give it a real example. For example, if someone is a head of growth, I want you to output growth. Right? So I'm giving an example. If they're ahead of growth, I want you to say growth. All right, let me actually give it a few examples because I really don't want to mess this up. Here's a few examples of inputs and outputs. If someone is ahead of growth, I want you to output growth. If someone is a VP of business development, I want you to output business development. And if someone is a director of operations and partnerships, I want you to output operations and partnerships. Right? Again, I'm doing this on the fly, and you can see how this would kind of look back in this script here. Hey, took a look at your LinkedIn, saw you're leading operations and partnerships at company name. To me, that sounds normal and that sounds great. If someone is the director of operations and partnerships, that sounds like a good email here. So we fed it, we told AI, hey, this is what I want you to do. We gave it a bunch of examples. Here's what I want you to output. And now we're just going to feed it the input. So here is the job title, and then I'm going to feed it the job title, and then we're going to let it run. I'm going to go over here again. I'm going to switch the model. In this case, I might want to use a more expensive model. So I'll just show you what it looks like if we use a different one. We're going to use Sonnet here. And again, we're going to use our own API key. Again, the model doesn't really matter too much as long as it's powerful enough that it's giving you a good output and that it's cheap enough that it fits within your budget. In a lot of cases, the ones I use are the like GPT-4o ones or Anthropic's models. Again, the exact best practice might depend on when you're watching this video and depending on what models are out there and what the costs are. The last thing I'm going to say is only output the department function, nothing else. We're going to have this save and we're going to run 10 of these. And again, what we're looking for in this case, this is very simple since there's GTM and there's business development, that there really should only be two outputs, which is business development or GTM. And so again, this is a very simple use case. I'm going to try and scroll down and find someone or a title here that's go-to-market related. It looks like most of these are business development. So I'm going to scroll down. Cool. So it looks like this one's like head of GTM and people. And so I'm going to go over here and run this just to make sure that this looks good. Cool. And so it says GTM and people. So wonderful. So now we have this piece figured out and personalized as well. We're going to highlight the screen since this is completed. If I want to run this, all I have to do is run column and then run all 5,000 of these. Again, this is very simple once you have it down and once you get the prompting stuff down, and then we can move on to the next step. I'm going to go over here and just click through a few more of them. This is a bit redundant. And again, this is a very simple use case. I don't want to do a super complicated use case for this video and confuse everyone just getting into this, but this is just an example. And you can see this is a very simple example. Another way you could do this, I'm sure you could do this this with a formula and without AI. But the beautiful use case here with AI is that you can feed it any sort of title. It can be a really wacky title and you don't have the super complicated formula that tries to run for everyone and then messes something up. The AI can pass in the data and then give you an almost perfect output every time. So now that's complete. And then one last thing that I'm going to do here and that I should have done is not run this for the people that are B2C. Since we don't want to be reaching out to these people, I'm going to actually set a conditional formula down here. So you can see inside Clay, there's an only run formula, and we can use AI to prompt this saying, I only want you to run this column if business model type response is B2B. So the reason why we're doing this, because ultimately we can have this run on everything, because we don't want to waste credits on people that we're ultimately not reaching out to. So if someone's B2C, we don't want to spend a bunch of AI credits on everyone else who's in this sheet. That way we're not wasting a bunch of credits. So this output's correct. I'm going to save and I'm going to run 10 of these again. And so let this run again real quick here. I'm actually going to pause this for a second here just so we don't burn through a ton of credits. All right, so now we reran this again, and you can see this cell here says run condition not met. The reason why is because this person's B2C and we don't want to waste a bunch of credits because we're not going to end up reaching out to this person. Awesome. So we filtered out the people that are not B2B. We clean the job function. That way we can have it perfect insert in an email. That way we're not saying their janky job title that might be super long and sound really weird. We're just saying the function that they're leading. Now we want to normalize the company name. So again, we're going to go back to Clay here and we're going to leverage AI one more time using, again, a very similar approach. We're going to go over here to add column. We're going to use AI again here. And then we're going to go over to the same use case before. We're not going to need to scrape the web since we already have the company names. And then we're going to pick our model. Again, the model doesn't matter here. In this case, we might go back to GPT-4o mini. I'm just switching between them to show you that it doesn't make a whole lot of difference. The only difference it really makes is cost, and that depends on your goals and exactly what you're trying to hit and if the outputs are good enough for what you want. And now in this case, we want to clean the company name. So what are we going to do? We're going to explain this just as if we were explaining it to a human being. So we're going to tell it the inputs and outputs we're going to give it. So I'm going to feed you a company name and I want you to output the company name in a cleaned format so it sounds human in a cold email. For example, so now we're going to tell it what it means. Again, we could just give it the inputs and outputs here, but I want to feed it as many examples as possible because the more examples you give AI, the better outputs it's going to give you. So for example, if I feed you the internal revenue service, I want you to output the IRS. Right? That's a perfect example of a long company name and how it can be shortened. Or let me just go back. Here's a few examples of how this might look. So I'm going to say, if I feed you the internal revenue service, I want you to output the IRS. If I feed you Acme Corp, I want you to output Acme. If I feed you Josh's Roofing LLC, I want you to output Josh's Roofing, etc. So these are just like a few use cases. The more examples you can give to AI, the better. This is an example where it's abbreviating and shortening something. This is a case where it's just removing like the corp or LLC. This is a case where you're capitalizing something and removing an LLC, etc. Ultimately, I just want you to output a human sounding company name. So when I use it in a merge field in a cold email, that it doesn't sound automated. We're telling it ultimately our motives behind this, so hopefully it gives it some more context. Here is the company name I want you to clean, and then we're going to do the slash key here, and then we're going to insert the company name. And so you can see here, Apollo already has this like somewhat clean. They call it company name for emails. I like to run this through one last time. That way it looks as clean as possible. And so again, we're gonna save this and run this 10 times. Clay's gonna do its magic. AI is gonna work its magic. I ultimately couldn't tell you how these companies do such a great job doing this on the back end. And you can see these company names look pretty clean to me. Now, I could go over here and we can run a bunch of these. In the case that I see a company name that I don't like, I'm going to go back into the prompt and I'm going to say, hey, this looks a little bit weird, or hey, remove this or change this around. In the case of this video, I'm going to try and keep this short. But if you don't like the outputs you're seeing, you can change that around here. See, I made the same mistake twice here, which I didn't include the filter here to not do this for B2C companies. I'm going to do this real quick here. I can actually just go to the edit column section and just swipe this over here and input it into the other column. Again, I'm going through this really quickly because I know your time is valuable and I want to make sure that I get through everything in this video. And so again, we're going to let this rerun. In this case, it looks like run conditions not met. And so this is exactly what we want to be doing. I'm not going to have it run for everything because again, I just want to do this as a demo, but pretend I went through here and ran this, 10,000 times or 5,000 times, you'd be all set. Now, all this data is nice and neat here inside of Clay, but your next and final question here, assuming that we have all three of these steps completed and you're happy with your outputs, you looked at all the outputs and you're like, man, this looks perfect for cold email sending. Now we're going to want to insert these into email. So this ultimately, the way that you're actually doing this depends on the sending tool that you use. I like to use Smart Lead because Smart Lead is a phenomenal tool and it hasn't let me down yet. And so what we're going to do here is we're going to pop open Smart Lead. Again, if you want to check out a video on Smart Lead, I have other videos on my channel here where I talk about all the ins and outs of cold email sending. But you can see here, this is the cold email that we have here. So what I'm going to do so I can pull this in, there's two things I could do. Either I could have this import directly to Smart Lead inside of Clay by adding enrichment, and then I could type in Smart Lead. And you can see here, I can add the leads directly to the campaigns with all the data that I have here, or I can download this as a CSV. I'm going to do this because I think it's a little bit quicker. And so I'm going to go over here, actions and export, and then I'm going to download this as a CSV. So again, you can directly send this to Smart Lead inside of Clay, but I'm just going to do this since I think this is a little bit quicker and because I don't have the fields mapped inside of Smart Lead already. And so now you can see this is all set. Now I'm going to go back into Smart Lead and I'm going to upload the CSV. I'm going to upload this updated list here. I'm going to press save. And then now you can see I have all these different variables that I have set out here. So I'm going to go back to Clay real quick just to verify this. You can see clean company name. I'm going to call this company name, job function. We're going to make this a custom variable here. And then let me see here, business model type. What I should have done here is actually just not even include the people that are B2C. Let me actually redo this. So I'm going to go over to the filter section here. I'm going to filter for people where response equals B2B, response equal to B2B. That way we're only exporting the people that have the right criteria in the first place. Let me actually re-download this real quick. Wonderful. We have it re-downloaded. I'm not going to go through and rename this sheet here, but I'm going to delete this and re-add this. Wonderful. And then now we're going to be able to add this in here. So we're going to make the company name field mapped here, the job function field mapped here. We're going to call this a custom field. We're going to make sure that we include our email here as well. And we're going to include their LinkedIn as well. And we're going to save and next here. All right, now finally, we're inside Smart Lead. You can see it imported 1,600 people so far here that were categorized as B2B. And you can see here, this is our copy. I'm just gonna double check and make sure that our variables are named properly here. Inside Smart Lead, you can press this Insert Variables tab here and then pull in the variables. I forgot exactly what I named it, but if you wanna double check what the variables are named, you can go inside back into Clay. And the way that Smart Lead names the variables is it's just the same name as the column here. So this one's called job function. So I'm gonna go over here and type job underscore function. I'm going to close this out. And then the company name, I just map that as company name. And so I'm going to press insert variables here. And I'm going to input company name here as well. It looks like Smart Lead tried to save it here, but let me try it again. And so hopefully this should be all set. Let me double check by doing a preview here. And let's see here. Looks like it all got pulled in properly here. So, hi Carlos, took a look at your profile and saw you're leading business development at C&G. Just curious, blah, 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 blah. Beautiful. So now this is all set. If I switch to the next person in the list here, same thing. It just pulled in all the data from Clay. And if I want to continue and run this campaign, which this video is not all about cold email sending, you can check out the other videos for that. All I have to do is configure the rest of the settings, add the email accounts, and do all the other dirty work that I didn't cover in this video here, and you should be good to send. Now, there's a couple of things I didn't cover here. Again, if you're trying to run a cold email campaign, you're going to want to validate your leads. You're going to want to make sure your copy is clean. You're going to want to split test things. You're going to want to add follow-ups. You're going to want to make sure your deliverability is all set, warm up your email accounts, and do all the other best practices I covered in this video. But more specifically on how you personalize emails with AI, this is just how you do it. If you want to check out Clay and all the other stuff, you can check out the links in the description below. If you got value out of this, check out the other videos on the channel here as well, because I have a lot of content talking about cold email. Really appreciate you. And finally, if you're looking for someone to help you set up cold email systems or help you with any part of this process, you can check out one of the links in the description below over at Anivo Marketing, and you can apply to work with us and see if we can help you run any sort of cold email campaigns. Appreciate you a ton and hope you have a great rest of your day.